Hello, everybody, and good afternoon, and welcome to the Sequire Fintech Conference. I'm Chris Miglino. I'm the CEO and founder of SRAX. We appreciate you joining us today for this conference. We have a lot of amazing fintech companies that are presenting here. If you did not know already, SRAX is the owner of Sequire, the company that is operating this conference, among many others that we throw throughout the year, both virtually and in person. So we appreciate you taking the time to watch the conference and learn about all these different fintech companies and some of the amazing talks that we've had here today. First, let me give you a safe harbor statement. So, just be careful about everything that you hear during the presentation. We have some forward-looking statements that are based on current expectations and involve certain risk and certainties. So give this a read. Maybe pause the screen, give a read into the safe harbor statement. So if you don't know what SRAX does, we're in the business of providing tools for publicly traded companies to help them make their lives easier and to provide a bunch of products and services that are important to the issuer of public stock. We built this product out of a need of our own. We were a small cap company that started out listed on the OTC. And at the time, we didn't have a way to understand who was buying our stock, who was buying and selling it on a daily basis. And the only thing that was available for us was who was filing 13Fs and 13Gs on ownership of certain amounts of stock in the company. Now, we said there's got to be a better way that companies can learn. Not only small cap, but any company can learn about who the retail investors are. And when I say retail, I don't only mean small ownership. If you look at the ownership in our company, many of the people that own stock within SRAX are very large funds and own large positions, but they don't break that $100 million mark where they have to file the 13Fs. So we still want to understand who those people are and what they're doing. So that was the start of Sequire, was building this tool for ourselves and understanding who those investors are. Then over time, we had a couple of companies that said to us, hey, can you help us do that same thing for our customer base and understand who is engaging in our stock and who's buying shares and things of the sort. So we went from us to 8 companies to, grew up a little bit above that. And then it just took off. Now we have close to 300 public issuers that are using the Sequire platform that are engaging in a variety of different services that was the start of Sequire, but we've grown it significantly since that. So at the core of everything we do is the Sequire platform. We then have 2 other elements that we do. We have LD Micro, which is a in-person conference that we do a few times a year. And in fact, we have in June 7th, 9th of 2022, we have a big conference that's happening in Westlake Village at the Four Seasons Hotel, where we have close to 200 companies will be presenting to a large number of investors their story and what they're doing. And we have it set up where the companies come in and they give a 25-minute presentation and then answer some Q&A. We invite on an invitation-only basis investors that we know are active in the small cap space and people that we know are making investments in the space. LD Micro also has an index where we track the movement of shares of small cap companies, and you can find that on ldmicro.com. And then we have created a virtual event software that has allowed us to throw virtual events like the one you're looking at today. And we use this software to run our own events, which we've had many of this year and last year. But we also allow banks to utilize our software to throw their conferences. So some very notable banks have used our software to throw their investor conferences. Now, why do we do all of this? How does this all tie together? So within Sequire, we have a database of close to 10 million retail investors. So we understand the movement of these 10 million investors through all these different issuers. Those retail investors join into our in-person and virtual events. And then they also engage with our websites, both ldmicro.com, and then we have a site called microcaps.com, which has been getting anywhere from 300,000 to 600,000 unique visitors a month. And in doing this, we're creating community around all of these investors. So we're creating educational tools for them to learn about investing. We're creating educational tools for them to learn about specific companies. So within Sequire, some of the things that companies can do is they can run all of their earnings calls on the platform. So they can have an earnings call right through the platform and understand who came to the conference. And it saves all of that data inside the platform and will allow them to then invite them again in the future. So let me, once we're now creating this community of investors, every event we do just builds more and more data about who's interested in what type of companies. So everybody that's watching this today, we know that you're interested in fintech related companies, or you're looking for a company that might be in the fintech space. So we have the ability then to create profiles of these different investors over time and understand the different type of things that they're interested in, and then be able to help educate them about those companies and provide information about those companies. In 2021, we had quite the year for SRAX. We did around 46.1 million in bookings, meaning that we closed around $46.1 million worth of sales in the company. Our contracts are 12-month contracts, so a lot of that runs over an entire year. At the time, we had around 278 issuers that had signed up for Sequire. We have Q1 revenue guidance that is at around 11.5 million. And then we have full year revenue guidance of 2022 for 47 to 49 million, which we recently raised up a little bit. We were at 45 to 47 million. Now we went up to 47 to 49 million. So we continue to see adoption of our platform. And, in fact, just this last week, we had the largest sales week that we've ever had in the history of the company. So a lot of companies ask us, a lot of investors ask us, what kind of impact is the downturn in the market having on your business? So the fact that we had the largest sales week in the history of the company last week is indicative of saying, I think that as the market comes down a little bit, more and more people want to understand the movement of their shares and what's happening within their ecosystem, and providing tools that allow them to engage with those shareholders. So this gives you a look of the size of the bookings that we have since Q1 of 2020. You can see here that, obviously we've had a significant increase in the number of shares. And we started to see this kind of downturn in the end of Q4 and Q1 in the market. And that's when we started to see this acceleration of sales in the business. And also just we've hired up a lot more salespeople within the business. So, we continue to see good growth there. We've had a lot of subscribers over time. So you can see here that we've continued to see a significant number of subscribers over time. We have some warrants in the company, have around 3.5 million warrants that expire in October. We had around 1.4 million that expired in April, and only around 190 of those got executed. So we have a substantial of, we thought maybe there was going to be another 1 million foreign shares in dilution, but that came down to only around 190,000. So that was great. And hopefully similar thing happens here in October and we don't get those shares. So here's what a fully diluted share count looks like. So you can see here that fully diluted with all of the 2022 warrants, you're looking at around 31 million shares, 31.5 million shares outstanding. So depending on how many of these actually get exercised, will put us at around 31 million shares. Now, we were delayed in filing our 10K primarily due to the spinoff of our big token business. The big token business was a complex transaction. There were some accounting issues that the auditors wanted us to get validation from the SEC on, which we did, which just delayed the audit for around 8 weeks. And so we're still in the process of finishing up that 10K, which will then put us quickly in to be able to finish up Q1. But as it relates to the warrants, the silver lining of all of this is that the shares were registered underlying the warrants that we had. And since we were not current with our 10K, all of those warrants went cashless. So that's why you went from 1,000,004 shares only down to around 190,000 shares that went out there. So while we were, we don't like the fact that we're late on filing the 10K. Some silver lining of that is that it helped us avoid significant dilution of shares in the marketplace. So once we are able to get this 10K filed, which we hope happens, here pretty quickly, then we'll be back on track and can make the decision on whether to re-register those shares for the warrants that expire in in October, or just to leave them the way that they are. Within the organization, we have around 153 employees. We have some amazing talent. This is our building that we have down in Mexicali, Mexico. We write a substantial amount of our software, both in Wichita, Kansas, and in Mexicali, Mexico. We've over the years have built software all over the world, and we've been able to build an amazing team down in Mexicali. And I'd say now better than ever, we have our stride going on, and the team is doing a fantastic job in writing amazing content for the platform. We have some new features that we've launched within Sequire, and this is one that I'm super excited about and have worked on very hard. One of the challenges that companies have when they're doing a transaction in a financing in a company is understanding the movement of those shares after they do a financing. So a company comes in and says, I'm going to do a financing for $5 million. Well, what does the book look like? Who are those people that are investing in that transaction, and where are those shares going? So we've built a tool that allows us to track the movement of those shares, to track how many people are investing in this particular offering, and then specify what type of rights do they have. Is there any resets? Is there any ratchets? Is there any warrants that these companies get? And what are the implications over time of doing a new financing in the future as it relates to the old financing. And what is it? Where do those shares that we gave up in that offering, where do they go? Where do those shares enter the market? Are they going to Goldman? Are they going to Jefferies? Are they going to Pershing? So we track where all of these shares go. And then we've created this system to have AI so that it can make some predictions about what those investors will do with those shares over time. Now, those predictions are based on previous activities of those investors and also existing view of what they're doing with those shares. So are they selling them day to day? And if so, how much are they selling day to day? So then our system learns that this particular investor, after investing in a transaction like this, has a tendency to exit the market within a specified amount of time. And the more companies that engage within the system, the more our system learns about the behavior of these investors. So as a community of issuers, we can provide information and data to each other about how quickly an investor is likely to stay in a transaction. So there's many times that, these companies do transactions and the bankers will say, this is a long-term investor. Well, how do you validate that? How do you validate that this person that's coming into the transaction is actually a long-term investor? But you can only look at their previous behavior to understand if they've been a long-term investor in the past. And what type of implication has investments from this particular company had on the stock price? Is every deal that this particular investor has invested in gone down after an investment from them? If so, that's very valuable data to understand. And then how quickly have they sold out of those shares? So the Deal Center will help companies and issuers understand that and then give predictions about what they can expect in the future from those shares. We've been working on this for a good part of a year, and it's finally here and released to all of our issuers on the platform, and we're helping them fill in all of the data about the different transactions that they've done. So let's say that when you come into the system and you create a deal that you just did, and let's say that you do have some price protection in that transaction for future investments. The next time you do a financing, the system will flag you that this particular deal that you're doing is having an impact on a previous deal that you did, either on the common shares that you issued, the preferred shares you issued, the debt that you issued, or the warrants that you issued. And then it'll tell you the implication that doing this new transaction will have on the old transaction and what type of additional dilution that will add into the market. So it's a very valuable tool for the CFO to understand as they're doing transactions. So as I said, we're really excited about this feature, and it's been a long time coming, and we've been working really, really hard on it. And we'll be having a bunch of webinars on this for our existing clients over the next few weeks to educate them about how this system works. We've also launched in our virtual events platform, we've added the ability for companies to launch their own one-on-one meetings, either in conferences like the one you're on right now, where companies can open themselves up for one-on-ones, or within their earnings calls, they can actually set aside time to do one-on-ones if they'd like to do that. This was no easy task for us to get done, and it takes a lot of coordinating, but we continue to enhance our virtual event software, which now we're working on to make it so that companies can use that in all of their events that they're doing, whether they want those events to be in person or virtual. So I think that this tool has been a very powerful tool for us, and allows us to gather a substantial amount of data on what investors are doing one-on-ones with companies, which investors are interested in specific companies. Are they interested in fintech? Or are they interested in doing something in the metal space? You name it. What are these investors interested in? And that enables us to get a lot of data around these particular events. So just to give you some more insight, though, before I finish up, within Sequire, we have a significant amount of data on who's investing in a particular company. Now that company can see not only like I said earlier, the 13F and 13Gs that are being filed, but they can see the actual retail investors. They can see the person that owns 100 shares. They can see the person that owns 100,000 shares or millions of shares. And then what we do is we take that information and we append their Facebook account, their LinkedIn account, their Twitter account, their email addresses, their phone numbers. And this gives the issuers the ability to then utilize the platform to send information about their company to their shareholders. So they can email their shareholders, they can SMS their shareholders, they can send surveys to their shareholders. So they can go in and create a survey and ask, how do you feel about our earnings this quarter? Do you think that the company is doing a good job? What would cause you to invest more in this company? So you have the ability to execute on that. We've also created it so that companies have the ability to go in and look at not only their own investors, but to look at the publicly available data about their competitors. So who are the investors in competitive company? Who are those funds that are investing into your competitor? And who are the people at those funds that you can talk to? What are their phone numbers? What are their emails? What are their LinkedIn profiles? So that you then can engage and communicate with those people. We've done the same thing with registered investment advisors so that you can see who are all the registered investment advisors in New York City. And if you were going to throw an event that was local to New York, or say you were going to do one like where I live in Westlake Village, California, how do I invite people in this area to come to a presentation about the company, to learn about the company? The system will give you that information so you then can and start to invite people to that event, either virtually or in person. We've also added the ability for companies to manage all their warrants through the platform. So, who owns the warrants? What is the actual warrant document itself? How many do they have? Did they exercise any yet? And we're adding that same feature for employee options as we speak. So there's a lot of tools within the platform that are very beneficial for, that are very beneficial for issuers out there. So in summary, we continue to see strong growth within the Sequire platform, and we continue to have strong adoption of the platform itself. And we would encourage any of the large investors that see this, that might have an interest in attending one of our LD Micro in-person events, to get in touch with our LD team and get an invite to the LD Micro event. We'd love to see you there, and you can get a sense of the breadth of our relationship with these issuers and how we're building community around all of these different issuers that are out there. So you can continue to watch us to provide more information about community and building community around all of this information over the next coming year. And That's really our goal, is to educate investors, educate issuers, and help them create a link between each other. So thank you very much for listening today about SRAX. And also thank you for attending the Sequire Fintech conference. I hope you found it educational and some of the talks to be beneficial. And hopefully you find a company that you might have an interest in investing in from your activity here. And keep an eye out for all of the other presentations or events that we put on throughout the year. And you can see those on microcaps.com. There's a list of all the events that we have. So you can see all of the previous events. You can go there and watch them as well. So thank you very much for your time and your continued support.